Hey everybody, welcome back to my living room. This is my latest project. I know I've been kind of tearing the system apart. I started with a basic system and I just use this so much. The Kaleidoscape is so awesome. If you're not familiar with Kaleidoscape, go check out the video. I'll put the link in the description. I love the Kaleidoscape. It's movie server. I don't care what anybody says. It's something I wish I'd gotten years ago. But I've been running a basic system in here, a little above average, but I had PSB, PWM3s, and then I swapped to the floor standard, the T65s, and I had some Dynaudio subs, and I had the wireless rear subs, and just had a bunch of random stuff. Well, you can see the speaker here, and I'll talk about the speakers in this video a little bit, but the main purpose is to talk about this stuff. But I've upgraded to like a full-on, like really, really nice family room theater system. The system is set up as I guess it's going to be 5.1.4, so we'll go over that as well. But the star of the show here today, by the way, go to obsessedhometheater.com. Also go to the Youthman channel. That's where the home theater detail. This on Obsessed Garage is just, again, Obsessed Garage is me sharing my life with you. And this Primare stuff is something I'm really interested in using and testing out. But go to obsessedhometheater.com. I think JVC should be live here shortly. We're going to build out a curated infrastructure, much like Obsessed Garage. And so Youthman, Michael Stevens, and Rusty Mensch are my partners in that business. And so this is a brand that we're considering for Obsessed Home Theater. I've always been in love with Marantz. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons of the last few months here using the system, but today I want to talk about what I'm going to set up here. So right now the system, the 5.1 or 5. Right now it's 5.2.4. When we go to this, the one disadvantage is going to go 5.1.4, and I'll explain that as well. But the Marantz is a receiver, right? So there's an amplifier built in to the, it's an integrated amplifier. So there's a preamplifier and amplifier all in one box. It's rated at 130 watts per channel, which probably means it's less than 100 watts per channel with all channels driven. Now I have much higher end speakers in the R7Ts and then the R5 center. So with the addition of the per listen stuff, I think it's time to upgrade my amplifier game. So I reached out to the reps from Primare and I said, hey, I'd like to do this. I bought this stuff. Same thing with my per listen. I bought all this stuff. So none of this is sponsored. I purchased it for myself, and so I'm going to give you a little bit different take than I think the only videos I've been able to find on this. Giles McCoy had a video, Andrew Robinson had a video, but to me they're always approaching things not as an owner, they're approaching things as a reviewer. Well, I'm not giving you a review here, I'm just putting it in and I'm going to give you my perspective as an owner, just like everything in Obsessed Garage. I mean, I don't do reviews, it's not what I do. I'm sharing with you the experience that I have with the things that I'm buying for myself. So, SPA 25 preamp processor is going to be the main guy, the main driver for this, and so it'll easily be able to handle the Dolby Atmos setup that we're going to replace the current receiver. It'll be easily be able to handle that. But this, I have to take the cellophane off. I'll do that after I get installed. But this is hard aluminum, I think. Sure feels like actual metal. This reminds me very much, sorry to Primare for throwing other brands in here, but this reminds me very much of B&K components back in the day, which I sold a ton of when I was at Bryn Mawr Stereo, then Tweeter, then Sound Advice back in the day. The fit finish looks very similar with the brushed aluminum front bezel. These amplifiers and preamplifiers look like totally my style. Now this is, Marantz is here. This is a step up from there. I put this in the NAD category, and I've been such a huge fan of the NAD stuff. But I wanted to compare and utilize this. I'm not a huge fan of the M17. The preamp from NAD is nice. It just seems a little clunky. I'm hoping that this is better. The Marantz interface is, the Japanese interface is fantastic, but we'll see if this European product with the fit and finish, the extra power, the extra sort of care taken on this, the mass-producedness of this, we'll see how this works and sounds. So preamplifier is this one disadvantage. I'm hoping to swap this at some point. I don't know how much it matters, but I'm going to run RCA because the SPA25, the current version that's UL approved here in the US, doesn't have XLR. Although my amplifiers have XLR in, I'm going to be using RCA connections. So we'll get into the QED cables we're going to swap over to. Then I have the sort of the flagship of the line, an A35.2. I've done a little bit of reading on this. I'm a big fan of Class D amplification now. It runs cooler. It runs more efficiently by the power coming out of the power required coming out of the wall, and so I'm not going to have to, hopefully not have to put a 20 amp or dedicated 20 amp circuits in. Lower distortion, again, more efficiency you're going to get out of the amplifiers. And so this is a 2-channel amp. It's rated at 200 watts per channel at 8 ohms. My speakers are 4 ohms, and so I'm going to get 400 watts per channel. And I'm going to run this in stereo. And then I have the 8-channel amp, but I only have 7 channels to amplify. I have the 4 overheads, the 2 rears or surrounds, and then I have the single center. So anyway, the A35.2 is going to carry the load of the front speakers. The A35.8 is going to carry the rest of the speakers. This is an 8-channel amp. I only have 7 channels to amplify, and so I'm going to get my 150 watts per channel at 8 ohms. The rears are 4 ohms, the overheads are 6. So I have R2Is, R2CIs, which is their two-way in-ceiling speaker I'm using as Atmos from Perlisten, and then I have the R4S, I believe. So the R4's surrounds are 4 ohm. And so at 4 ohms, I'm going to get 300 watts to the left and right, and I'm not exactly sure what the amplifier is going to do at 6 ohms, but let's say it shoots the gap, and what is that? 250 watts per channel is what I'm going to get to the to the height channels. But because this is an 8-channel and I only have 7 channels to amplify, the center channel is going to get a bridged channel. And so bridged, I think I'm going to get, I wrote this down just because I was interested. So my center channel is 4 ohms. I'm going to get 750 watts to the center channel. So the center channel is going to get some juice. And these amplifier, the architecture of this is a little bit different. This is an Encore Class D, which is technically inferior, but the power supply on these Primaires, from what I can tell, is NAD level or superior. So the internal architecture of these amplifiers, I mean, I'm paying more than you would with say something like a Buckeye amplifier or some other brand's amplifiers. So I'm going to pay a little bit more, but what I'm hoping I'm paying for is fit, finish, and then amplifier architecture. The modules are pretty generic, right? The Encore modules they purchase, and then the way they have it set up is they put heat sinks on I think there's 4 different heat synced modules. The nice thing about these, especially the 8-channel amplifier, is that I could pull a module out and service it myself. So if there was ever a problem, it's 4 screws, pops out, and I can swap it out. So this is an Encore Class D. And this is a UFPD, ultra fast power device. Ultra fast power device. So this has a UFPD 2, so it's a second version module, which I think, and maybe you can correct me in the comments here if you're a Primare person, I think is like a Eigentakt, Purify Eigentakt competitor. And so this is, I believe the UFPD is Primare's, bespoke. It's their own circuit or their own amplifier, their own digital amplifier. Now, these digital amplifiers, I want to read something to you to help kind of make this make sense. They're digital amps. So the term Class D is sometimes misunderstood as meaning a digital amplifier. This is from Primare. While some Class D amps may indeed be controlled by digital circuits or include digital signal processing devices, Primare's UFPD modules operate entirely in the analog domain. Basically, the UFPD module takes an analog input sine wave, converts it into a high frequency pulse width modulated square wave for amplification. This square wave is then filtered, resulting in an amplified analog sine wave at output. So it's a Class D amplifier that is operating at roughly 90 to 95% efficiency. In fact, the version 2 of this is 93.1% efficient. And so the power coming out of the wall is going to be passed through to the amplification stage, and it's doing so in the analog domain. But it has a tiny little chipset rather than a big toroidal transformer in the middle. So more efficient, less heat. I'm not going to need fans and stuff like that. I'm not going to need dedicated circuits, and I'm going to get almost zero total harmonic distortion across the entire frequency range. And so I've fallen in love with Class D. Back in the day, Class D amplifiers were really just for subwoofers because they'd get real harsh and just kind of dead sounding, and the companies Primare, NAD, there's many companies, Purify, the Encore stuff has really taken Class D to the next level, making amplifiers sound as good, if not better in some ways, than Class A, Class AB, and do so much more efficiently. So I've been a convert. So anyway, I'm going to get the other stuff torn out and trying to bring you along for this install swap and give you my assessment as an owner. All right, so spun this around, show you what we're working with here. So here's our preamplifier in the middle. There's our main and auxiliary outputs. The main is the eARC connection, so that's the one I'll be utilizing, although I don't think I'm going to be utilizing eARC because I'm going to go Apple TV into input 1, Kaleidoscape into input 2, and then main out to the TV, so I won't be using the eARC functionality. I won't need the digital coax or digital optical inputs. I will come in with my LAN connection. I guess I'll put the antennas on, but I don't think I'll really need the antennas. One was Bluetooth. I guess they're probably both Bluetooth. One might be Wi-Fi and then one's Bluetooth. You have two input for Ethernet. So here is where I'm going to bring, let's see, this is my analog input stage. So this is if I was bringing in some outside sources, which I wouldn't need. Line out, which would be for like zone 2 or something like that, which I don't need. And so what I will be using is front. So the front, left and right will go to the A35.2. Front, left and right will go to left and right in. And we will select the RCA connection because that's what we'll be using. I will also run a trigger wire. This does have auto signal sense, but I'm going to run a trigger wire. So trigger wire will go trigger out into trigger in, and I could daisy chain if I wanted to. I have two trigger out. Oh yeah, I only have a single trigger out, so I'll go trigger out to trigger in, and then trigger out of the 35.2 to trigger in of the. And it's nice they both have a simple pass through to the A35.8. So then I don't need the other front. This would be if I was bi-amplifying. So maybe someday I'll get another 35.2 and bi-amplify the fronts. Then you'll have to test, well, should I bridge it and run it as mono? But for now, we're going to run it. The stereo pair is going to connect to my left and right fronts. And then we'll run center. So center will go to 1. It'll be bridged down to 1 channel. And then I'll use the bridge connection, which gives you this thing here. So I would use the center posts. So my center channel is going to go there. Then I'll do left and right surrounds, left and right height front, left and right height rear. So surround, height front, height back. And then unfortunately on this is something I'm going to ask them about if we really start, if I really love this and we start selling this. This is much like NAD. They do the same thing. Even with all the sophisticated, bass management or bass control from Dirac. So this does not have Dirac. The SPA25 does not have Dirac bass control. It has Dirac Live. Dirac bass control would be the next level. This does not have discrete left and right subwoofers. It just has a parallel out. And so that's part of the reason why I did the Marantz, because it has 4 discrete subwoofer connections. And so that's basically all we're going to set up here. We're going to run the RCA cables, run this out to the subwoofer, and then we'll power our speakers with speaker wire. Pretty simple. All right, so here's my room, R7T, D series 210 subwoofer, R5 center channel from ProListen, another D210, and then the R7T. This is a 83, so an LG 83 G3 OLED. In there on the left side, so I should probably go open that up for you. I've got my Marantz Cinema 30, copper chassis, $4,500, really nice receiver. It's done a great job. I can't really complain about anything. The only 2 things that I've struggled with on it for a while, they did a firmware update, and then every other time I turn it on, I'd have to turn it on and turn it off because it wouldn't HDMI sync. Now, they did a firmware update. Every time I turn it on, it plays audio, but it won't switch inputs with eARC. So it won't automatically switch inputs. So I have to keep the Marantz remote out to switch to Apple TV if I'm watching that. Down here is the Furman. This is the 15 amp, so the Elite 15 amp version. And then in the center here, I have Apple TV. This stand is a BDI sequel stand, I believe. BDI stand. I'm also working on becoming a BDI dealer as we open up our showroom here. Then the rears that we talked about. So you can see the rears are directly on the left and right side of the room. The other one's over here. You can see they're mounted at the same exact height, same exact position. They technically should be a little bit lower, but I didn't want to put them lower because they looked weird. And hopefully Dirac can do some calibration and some correction for that. And then you can see the rather large Dolby Atmos height channels. So if I back up here, you'll be able to see it a little better. So I have the rear heights. I'll zoom out here. So rear heights and front height channels. All this lighting in here is Cree CR6 in 3500 Kelvin color temp. And so this family room here, without any acoustic treatments or anything, it's gonna rip. It's gonna sound, it already sounds great. With the Marantz, it sounds awesome. It's only gonna sound better with the much more sophisticated, much higher powered amplification with preamp and amp setup. Swap out all my cabling. I don't know, I just want it to all match. I've got a bunch of hodgepodge of stuff in there now. So I need RCA umbilical cord, so I'm gonna build that and label that. These QED Audio 40s, QED subwoofer cable, QED HDMI. I'm not gonna swap the HDMI to the TV. I have SVS HDMI cables to the TV. I don't wanna take the TV off. And then this is a waste of money, but they look pretty. QED Ethernet. Here's what the RCA cables look like. And then I've got some zip ties, which we'll use. I've got the power cords for the devices. The 8-channel amp has a big fatty power cord. The other amplifier and preamplifier have the same regular size power cords. And then these guys are awesome. I'm gonna have these in the store in the next week or so in my Kinepix base package, but these are a flush cut little zip tie cutter. I use these to cut all kinds of stuff, but zip ties, you get a nice flush cut on them. So one of the really nice features, one of the many nice features of the BDI stand is it's on wheels. And so even if I had a ton of weight, I can pull out, slide out, and easily access everything I need to access. I'm likely gonna have to, which is I think is kind of weird, to get the center here. I would think this back panel comes off, does it? Oh, okay, sweet. I thought I was gonna have to cut this back panel. But I want to dust and vacuum first. I'm gonna detach all my wires and start fresh and recut everything and kind of get everything remounted and dialed. We did quite a bit of drywall work here because I cut walls and then patched walls and continued to make updates. So I'm gonna have to utilize the center of the cabinet. And so I'm gonna take out these center pieces and decide how my equipment's gonna go, how I'm gonna line that all up. All right, everything's nice, neat, and vacuumed. I'm gonna take all the wiring out. But before I do that, I'm gonna make my umbilical cord of preamp cables. So I'm gonna use this puppy, the Dymo Rhino 5200 to create my labels. All right, so here's my umbilical cord. You can see all the labels, lefts around, rights around, and I bid both sides so that I know what's what. So that's all done, ready to go. All right, it's done many, many hours later. So I'm all set up, nice and wired. It'll all go into the right position as I push it back. And I'll come back tomorrow and work on it, all the setup. A closer look at my the D series 210s. So 110 is down inside, firing, I believe, downward. I think it's a push-pull design. I need to get more details on this. And then my R7T, I'll have some videos of some details of these coming up here, the R5 center. And then again, you saw my rear speakers and rear section. So the on-wall R4, the sort of wedge style speaker. Other one is directly in line, height and depth. And then my in-ceiling speakers. So let me show you the on-screen display. This is the remote that comes with the system. I kind of like it. And so I'm set up with this remote, which I occasionally need to get out, and then the remote for the Apple TV. So I've got this guy here, little Apple TV with a cover on it. Let me show you that cover because everybody always asks me this. I do have some extras because it gets stretched out over time. So it's Eligo. See that? So it's Eligo R1 IntelliCase. What happens is this, you know, just from you playing with it, gets a little droopy. And so I bought, they're like 10 bucks a piece. So I bought a boatload of them. It has little magnets inside. And so there's a magnet here that keeps it in place. And there's a magnet here. It's pretty nice. So I put my Apple TV remote in that. Makes it so that I don't jack it up all the time. Setup is actually extremely easy. So the menu is the option to be translucent, and then it shows up in the left-hand side of the screen. There's a simple menu button on remote control, so you have your preset settings. This is where all I did was I went in and changed the alias. So I changed the name to Apple TV and Kscape. It is character limited. I think that's Apple TV is the most amount of characters you can have. And then you have your input assignment options. I don't think, you could switch inputs here as well. So I switch inputs over to the Kaleidoscape. I go back to preset. I did notice that we sometimes get these little hang-ups. It's not Apple TV. It's actually Kaleidoscape. And so I did have to kind of go back and forth on this a bunch in order to get it to register properly. See how it's calling everything Apple TV in the menu? So what I had to do was physically change inputs and then restart the machine. So this is a little bit of a bug in the system that I did notice, that it's clearly switching inputs there. When I go back to preset, it still says Apple TV. And so I do find that it gets a little out of sync at times, and a simple turn the switch on or off in the back is something that's necessary. In speaker settings, I have a full setup with the exception of surround back, and so I've got my rear heights, front heights. You do have the option to choose the height type, but much simpler. I actually prefer this.
Now again, I wish that we had discrete subwoofers. Remember, the subwoofer connection is a parallel, it's just a Y adapter internally. So there's no discrete subwoofer adjustment or calibration. We have surround left and right and center, and all you would do is just simply turn these on and off to set up your system. This is also where you would choose your Dirac calibration. I'll show you what my calibration looks like here in a second. And so I played with 3 different curves, and the one that I ended up with is what I call room correction. The others I'll probably just delete at some point. I'll go back. You have crossover option. So you could, it doesn't give you large or small, so it does give you, which I kind of like this, full range, and then you can adjust your frequency depending on what you might think your speaker can play. Of course, I'm not messing with any of this because the Dirac filter is handling all of those, all that workload. And then, same thing, I set my LFE to 80, but I'm pretty certain that all this is bypassed by the Dirac filter. And so once you set this up, same thing with your distances, see how it says Dirac in here, but you could manually set your distances, but Dirac's going to handle all that distance and time alignment and all that stuff. Then levels, same thing, Dirac will take care of your levels. And so once you turn on Dirac, you stop having access. You can kind of see where my levels are here. So audio settings, I made sure to go do this, change my max volume to 99. I did reach peak volume. And so specified volume, I think is what startup is. So I'm going to turn that to 30. Double bass means you get, when you're in stereo mode and the surround modes, that you get bass out of the front speakers and the subwoofer. Obviously late night would be turned off. Headphones I'm not going to be using at all. Video settings, I had to make sure to turn on HDMI CEC control, so that way everything turns on and off with the Apple TV remote. And then this is where the transparency I was talking about, where you have the ability to sort of see through the menu system. Nothing to do here in the general settings. You could change brightness and how your standby goes and all that stuff. But and then this is where you would factory reset. This is also where you come in and check your firmware. I did a firmware update. It's kind of a clunky procedure. You have to go back here to, where is it? I have to go back into network settings, find so when I wanted to update Dirac or update this, I'd type in the IP address, and then you can click and drag a file you can download from the Primare website to update firmware. I'm not sure if it will auto update. If you go and type, that's what I did. As I typed in this IP address into my search bar, and then it gives you the option to do a force firmware update. And so I did that, and I don't think there was anything specific that updated. So everything was pretty up to date right out of the box. I don't think they do much changing here. And streaming settings, I don't really need to do anything there. You can create an AirPlay password if you wanted to lock it out. And so that's it. I mean, I don't really need to do anything with the network. As soon as you plug in the Ethernet cable in the back, it's good to go. So CEC control seems to be working okay. What it doesn't do, if I turn just the processor off, it won't turn the TV off. So I do need to check and see if they're in that lead follow section of CEC control, if I can adjust that. But when I do turn the Apple TV on, it does turn the processor on, the TV on, the Apple TV on. It is recognizing the input, so that's good. It is a little bit slow, quite a bit slower than the Marantz, but let's see if it actually turns on here and functions. And I have noticed that I've had to, kind of do some hard resets here and there. So I'm hoping once I get my system, my procedure down, see it's not recognizing my Apple TV here. It says no signal. This has happened several times where it's gotten out of sync. My Apple TV is on,
let's try switching inputs over to Kaleidoscape. And then my Kaleidoscape, I'm still controlling from my phone. I need to find an actual remote control. So if I power up my Kaleidoscape, I bet you there's no signal. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's good. So generally, my Apple TV will allow me to CEC back to it. And right now, so this has happened several times. I need to talk to the Primare guys about this. It's happened several times where I lose sync, and then if I do switch the input manually, see how it's still stuck on HDMI 2? So maybe there's some trick here. Let's try this. Let's go past it. Come back to Apple TV. So this is where, you know, HDMI becomes so darn problematic. So these are little tweaks, little quirks. You know, like I told you, the Marantz has some quirks. This has some quirks. And it's not so much the processor as it is HDMI. So while we're here, let's take a look at video settings, CEC control, power on command. Yes, it's just follow and ignore, so that's not going to. Source switch is following. And you know, it only enable, disable. So now if I go back to my preset settings and see it's still saying HDMI 2 is Kaleidoscape. So if I think it's probably largely because I was in here messing around with this, then it gets out of sync. All right, we do have audio. CEC is controlling my audio or my volume up and down. My amplifiers are signal sensing, so that's good. So let's see if we can switch back. Let's exit our menu. Let's go back to our other input. It says HDMI K-scape. There's my Kaleidoscape. Yeah, this has happened a bunch too, where it'll just keep going back to Apple TV, where it forces back, like Apple TV is grabbing, you know, HDMI back. So these are little quirks, little tweaks. You know, I'll come back to you and give you some updates on how do we overcome that. But the function, the sound is really incredible. So really simple design, really simple menu system, typical HDMI switching clunkiness. Just like every, you know, NAD that I had, the M17, a little clunkiness, the Marantz. I really wish that they hadn't done HDMI. I wish there was some other sort of system, some other protocol, just, you know, video over Ethernet or something like that. It would have been much better for control. So I did want to show you some of the quirks. I can't really play anything for you because of copyright content, but I'm telling you, it sounds incredible. The amplifiers are great. Huge upgrade over the just receiver having, you know, dedicated amplifiers. Okay, so let me show you a couple of things on the Dirac side that will be helpful if you do buy one of these. And if you do buy one, you know, shoot me an email, matt@obsessedgarage.com. I'll get you taken care of, and then I'll be available to help you since I own it and have it, and we'll know more about it as time goes on. This is the Dirac IP address, and there's like a troubleshooting on section on the Primare website. I didn't need to do this. It automatically assigned an IP address, and so what you do in order to update the Dirac firmware, you would simply enter this, and then you would go to Primare's site. So if I go here, just Google Primare SPA25, go to their page. This is the SPA25. A simple thing is go to this SP25. This SPA25 is the preamp. The preamp amplifier, the receiver. This is the preamp. So you go to the support section, and there's all this information here. And so there's an update, Dirac Live updating instructions PDF, and then there's the Dirac firmware file. So what you would do is you download the zip file, grab the zip file, drag it into here, and it will automatically connect with your processor and update the firmware. It only takes like, you know, maybe 5 minutes. Until I did this, and then I went in here and did a force over the air update here. So this, I typed in the IP address of the Primare, which you can either get from the menu or you can do something like a simple LAN scan. So I have this LAN scan, and so if I scan my network, then I can, you know, find my, you know, the IP address for my Primare. And then you type it into all you do is just type it into the prompt in Google or in Safari, so in Chrome or Safari, and it'll, you know, pull it up here. And this is where you can do your updates, your firmware updates. So I thought all the firmware was up to date, but I couldn't get Dirac to recognize the unit. And so if you go back to the main page, let me just make sure this is saved. So before you did all that, you really should go to Dirac and you go to the online store. So if you go to the Dirac page and go to the Shop Dirac Live store and you find your device, and it's in alphabetical order, so you'd find your Primare device. The other nice thing is that Primare must have negotiated a better pricing for Dirac Live. Even though I've already had licenses in the past, I need to buy it per, you know, machine oftentimes, and so it's only 99 bucks, where it's, you know, I think it was Dirac Live Room Correction, the full suite from Marantz was 600, and so not a bad return, or not a bad cost here. So you download this, you know, which will get you the latest version of Dirac. Then Dirac will show up, you know, in your software set somewhere. You don't need Dirac Live processor. You just want the base Dirac Live tool. And then make sure your unit's on after you've done the firmware updates. Should show up then. So I needed it to show up here. It also needs to be on. If it's not on, like my NAD is not on right now. My blue sound node, my node icon is not on, but yet it's, you know, it's showing up in my devices because it's on the network. So these have auto standby. I guess that, you know, Primare, you need to make sure that your unit is on. So I click this. I'm going to show you what I did to get all of my stuff set up. So I borrowed Rusty's remote, or not remote, microphone. You won't see the microphone here, but let's just use this mic. And then you would go into the volume calibration and adjust all of your volumes. Let me load my project here that I already have done, so we can see family room, Middleton, Primare initial Dirac is what I called it. See if we can load this up for you. And so let's go back to my calibration. So you can see here's all my calibrations of what everything ended up being. So I adjusted all my levels here. And then you select, I always do tightly focused image. And then you measure, and I measured 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 positions. It probably took about 30 minutes, something like that. And then you get your, you get all your individual speakers, you get their frequency response and how flat, or what nulls and what issues there are in the room. Interesting, surround left has quite a bit more going on in the low frequencies than surround right, but it's going to end up crossing it over here anyway. So you just do all these and it just creates this gobbledygook here for you. You proceed to your filter design. So this is where on my fronts and my center, we had actually done and built a curve with Eric and the team from Perlisson when they were here. And so the first thing I did is I ran, and I've deleted it, but I ran just a base curve, just whatever it said. I exported it so you go to proceed to filter design, you export it, I exported it into one, I just called it initial. It was really bright. There was a lot of, sort of spots in there that I didn't like how it sounded. And so what you can do here is you can go and you can load a target curve. So I saved the curve from my Dirac calibration on the Marantz.
I saved the target curve. I called it, per listen center channel. And then I was able to go and grab that same target curve, and it actually sounded the best. I'm likely going to hire somebody like Matthew Pose to come here and calibrate my system for me, formally, after I do at least try to do a couple of acoustic treatments in the room. And so this is what my front left and right curve, target curve looks like. And so you have the option to use their automatic curve, or you can do the control point version, or I can go and adjust this manually. And you can see we created these little dips here in that, that sort of 10K range, or 6 to 9K range. Same thing in the center. There's this little harsh spot on S's and stuff like that. And so this is where Eric and team, Eric kind of played with, Eric and Dan were playing with this to get that kind of that lisp, that S, and the sharpness out of the curve. But really simple, really easy to do. You can just click and drag this stuff however you want. There's my surround left and right, which we didn't do any adjustment. We just went flat, a nice flat frequency response. You can see it's the regular curve for each one of these is pretty close to flat. Subwoofer here. So one thing to be careful in subwoofers, I learned this lesson over time, if you create and if you add a bunch of boosts, so the Dirac is crossing the subwoofer over at 272 hertz. But we're producing almost nothing or very low volume output. So what you don't want to do is boost 100 to say 275 hertz. You'll get kind of boominess and ugliness. At least this is my crude understanding of how to make it sound at least decent. But you can see I'm adding 13, 12, 10 dB here across and we're able to measure down to 16.5 hertz in our room, which is pretty good considering it's a basic regular family room. And then group 5, all of my Atmos speakers are actually measuring pretty well. So I didn't do any calibration to any of this. I just left the target recommended curve. The subwoofer, I did juice up the sub quite a bit from the base curve. The left and rights I left as a nice flat looking curve, whatever Dirac created for me. And we spent a lot of time on the center and fronts in order to make them sound as good as possible. So this area here tends to be kind of harsh for me, and so bringing it down a bit helped to kind of flatten it out and make it sound the way I want. And then you export the filter, and that's it. So that's the Dirac portion, and I had done several different versions where I did what I said, target curve corrected, sub boosted, and then I did a target curve and a sub boosted, and that's what my room correction looks like. I don't think you can delete these. They just stay in there. And you can name them as many as you want. There's 4 different slots, and so that's how I did the Dirac calibration. All right, so other than the HDMI handshake tweaks that I'm gonna have to mess with, I did notice a remarkable improvement in output. I watched a bunch of tracks from Star is Born, Top Gun Maverick, listened to Eric Clapton concert. I found it very enjoyable. I'm very sensitive to those sort of higher, mid-range, lower, high frequency, the harshness. And so I was able to get most of that out. You can even hear probably a little bit of echo in this room. Obviously the furniture helps with some acoustics, the carpet or the rug. But I think that long term I may add at least a couple of front bass traps to help me out here, and then maybe I can talk Michelle to let me do some on ceiling if I make it look really nice and they make it look good. But I'm really pleased. Pricing, you're talking about $14,000 worth of equipment for the 3 pieces. Doing the preamp processor is what is that, like $5,400? I think it's $5,300. The 8-channel amplifiers, $5,000, and then it's $4,000 for the 2-channel. So you got a pretty pricey setup. Add in the per-listens, and we've got ourselves a pretty expensive family room setup. But I really, I spent a lot of time, using this.
The Kaleidoscape is amazing. So I'm at my first glance, again, that most this reminds me of is having B&K back in the day, and I loved my B&K. Like, I felt that sense of gratitude, that pride of ownership. I wasn't getting that same feeling with the bass receiver and the PSB speakers that I had in here. Now I really enjoy, like, it makes me feel good to come in and see my per listens. Of course, these are the R series, not the S series. I mean, these are still rather high end for, you know, a family room setup, especially since I'm going to do something dedicated upstairs. But we are now a per listen dealer. I do have access to Primare as well. The reason why I'm putting this in my family room is we're going to decide if it's something we really like in that kind of that mid tier. That mid-tier theater space where it's not all the way to some of the really expensive stuff like Trinov or Storm. Certainly not as capable as those, but its menu system is really nice, really easy to follow. Even doing updates, you know, once I show you how to do it, it's really simple. The trickiest part is some of the HDMI quirks. But I'm going to see how problematic that is. Like I told you, in my Japanese Marantz receiver of having tons of quirks. So that kind of comes with the territory. But as of right now, I think this is the system that will stay put for quite some time. They are coming out with an R7 center from Perlisten. So when that comes out, I'll swap my center channel, and then I'll probably try to, you know, convince Matthew Pose to come up here and shoot a video, and you know, do a way unnecessary room correction calibration with, I'm sure he uses REW and, you know, some other, you know, equipment that I don't even know exists in order to actually calibrate the system and get, you know, as much out of it as possible. But I think for down here, I'm going to stick with the two subwoofers. I am feeling like maybe I could see myself going with the D series instead of the R series subwoofers. I keep calling them D210s. It's R210, and so I could see myself upgrading the subwoofers, getting a little more impact. Maybe I'll do that when I did the center channel. But this is a really nice system for a family room. I'm really pleased. I'd love to help you with the Perlisten stuff, with the Primare stuff. I can carry Primare. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be, you know, a dealer for it specifically, but I can get it for you at you know, normal pricing. So hit me up. Same thing, you know, JTR, JVC. If there's one thing in this system that you're going to consider buying, you should buy a Kaleidoscape Strato V, and I'd really appreciate if you'd honor the source of and buy it from us if you heard about it from me, or I've got you remotivated to buy it anyway, because it is incredible. So love the system. Nice setup a nice setup process. Had I not been watching old Seasons to Survivor on my laptop and kept taking breaks, I could have swapped this out in, you know, an hour and a half. It took me half the darn day yesterday. But I'm really pleased. Can't wait to watch some movies tonight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.